Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Brent Venables, the Oklahoma Sooners, they got the hard part done. They got their difference maker at the quarterback position heading into 2025, and now the attention gets shifted towards, all right, how can we build the best offense possible around John Mateer? How can we supply him with enough talent on the outside to really maximize what this kid can be for Oklahoma in 2025, both not only at the pass catcher spot, but what can you do with the offensive line as well? I don't think it's a coincidence that you're starting to see a lot of commitments come in for Oklahoma coming off the news of John Mateer. We said it yesterday. He's a guy that fundamentally changes how you view Oklahoma heading into 2025. If you're an offensive lineman, if you're a pass catcher, there's that gravitational pull to playing in this Oklahoma offense. Want to start with some of the wide receiver additions this Oklahoma team has made, including a guy in Isaiah Sategna, who I'm a massive fan of. Talk about what this offensive line might look like for Oklahoma as well. Before we get into it, as always, to the Sooner fans, it's been really fun talking this program over the last couple of weeks, especially over the last couple of days with the commitment of John Mateer. Again, I think it fundamentally changes how you look at Oklahoma heading into 2025. The amount of support y'all continue to show to the boys continues to be amazing. Appreciate you guys. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Without further ado, let's get into a late Thursday night commitment that I think is going to fly under the radar, but I'm fired up about this kid. Isaiah Sategna, was a top 150 national prospect in the 2022 class. And to me, there's a little bit of a misconception in terms of what Isaiah Sategna brings on the offensive side of the football. He's one of the more decorated track and field athletes that we've seen come out of the high school ranks in quite a long time. And when you hear track and field athlete, you think about long speed, right? You think about speed in a straight line, which Isaiah Sategna has plenty of, right? Sub 10.8 in the 100-meter dash. This kid can cook in a straight line. To me, when I look at the track and field background, it starts with what he can do from explosiveness standpoint. The triple jump, the long jump, the short area quicks. That's the true track and field background that you see with Isaiah Sategna. That's what I think makes him an elite caliber athlete. Yes, he is very fast in a straight line, but what he can do with the football in his hands, making people miss, creating separation in the route tree, that's to me what I love most about Isaiah Sategna. And this is a guy that's going into year 4. He's a guy that you've seen the flashes from, but hasn't necessarily maximized himself. I think the storyline here is, can you maximize a guy like Isaiah Sategna in the 2025 season? Because if you can, I think there's some really special physical traits, and he didn't really have that opportunity at Arkansas, right? And KJ Jefferson, Taylon Green, it wasn't the best quarterback play that he was dealing with over the last couple of years. There's going to be a different level of quarterback play for him at Oklahoma in 2025. And you look at him and Deion Burks operating from the slot. Those are two really dynamic wide receivers that can make a lot of plays with the football in their hands. And I think that's where it starts. You're starting to put some playmakers around John Mateer. And again, Deion Burks coming back, it's not going to make national media headlines because he was on Oklahoma's team in 2024. That's about as good as any wide receiver you could get in the transfer portal. So you get a true wide receiver one coming back to Oklahoma in 2025, which we all know how big an issue the pass catcher room was for Oklahoma in 2024. Then you start saying, all right, what are some different kind of wide receivers that we want to give John Mateer? And then you look at John Mateer as a quarterback and say, one of the best attributes he brings to the table is what he does pushing the ball down the field. Wouldn't mind giving him some bigger bodied boundary wide receivers that can work vertically down the field, kind of like Nick Anderson gave Oklahoma in 2023. I think you want to start with Javanni Gibson. Javanni Gibson, a fascinating kid. I'll be the first one to admit I don't watch a ton of Arkansas Pine Bluff on Saturdays. Had to do a little bit of digging in on him. I had to do a little bit of watching Arkansas Pine Bluff. To me, I look at him and say, I'm extremely surprised that he was not more recruited coming out of high school, because the traits that you see, you love. And normally guys with what he brings to the table, 6'3", 205, big body that can work vertically. Normally you see programs kind of take flyers on guys like Javanni Gibson. Nobody really did. He goes to Arkansas Pine Bluff in 2024, 70 catches, 1,200 yards, 17.5 yards per catch. Nick Anderson gave Oklahoma that bigger bodied vertical threat in 2023, and it was a massive element of this Oklahoma offense. To me, Javanni Gibson can be that guy for Oklahoma in the 2025 year. And I like going after some veteran wide receivers along with a guy like Kante Lewis, who kind of similar body type, if you will. This kid he's been all over the place, UCLA to Wisconsin to Southern Illinois. You look at the Oklahoma wide receiver room and say, we like the young talent that's on this team. But a lot of the wide receivers that John Mateer was surrounded with less than 48 hours ago was a lot of guys going into year two. A lot of young wide receivers. I think Brent Venables looking at this offense saying, we got to get some experience, some guys who are a little bit more of known commodities. And Javanni Gibson, Keontae Lewis, not the headliner wide receivers that you see in the transfer portal, but you look at them and say they're both guys that have traits that can translate to the Power 4 level. And you look historically at the transfer portal and what transfer portal additions have really worked out for teams. It's a lot of guys that were at the G5 level that are bumping up to the Power 4 level, whether it's on the offensive line, whether it's at the wide receiver position. So what I think Oklahoma is trying to do here is, hey, we got a lot of young talent with a lot of upside. Let's go get some guys that we know can play and have played a lot and have produced a lot at the college football level. Javanni Gibson, Keontae Lewis, to me, kind of satisfying what Oklahoma is looking for. Then on the offensive line, you guys know how I feel about Luke Blanco. I think that kid is going to be a stud. Derek Simmons, this is not me being, because when Derek Simmons hit the transfer portal, I went back and watched him against NC State, kind of got a feel for what he could do against Power 4 competition. I don't know if he's a bona fide Power 4 starting tackle, but he's a guy that it definitely adds a veteran depth piece to the room. And again, you look at the Oklahoma offensive line, we like the young talent that's coming in. I think there's a really good chance a guy like Michael Susi could start year one at the tackle position as a true freshman, but it's nice to not have to rely on it. It's nice to build that competitive depth on the offensive line. We remember all the injuries that Oklahoma endured on the offensive line in 2024 and kind of wrecked their season a little bit. Bringing in a guy like Derek Simmons, I don't know if he's a known commodity Power 4 starter like a guy like Luke Blanco is, but at the end of the day, you're getting a guy that's played a lot of football over the last couple of years and is now trying to make that jump to the SEC level. And I could just be wrong, and I'm wrong plenty. Like, I look at Derek Simmons and say I'm not necessarily sold on him. There are a lot of personnel departments across the Power 4 level that really like this kid and that thought he'd be a good addition to their team. So I'm sitting here saying, hey, maybe he's not my cup of tea. Maybe I didn't love what I saw from him at West Carolina, but there's a lot of people who are smarter than me that like this kid a lot. So there's a good chance that Derek Simmons can translate to that SEC level. But anytime you get a chance to get a tackle that has played a lot of football, you're going to want to take it. And so now Oklahoma is starting to build a little bit around John Mateer. And yes, the quarterback play was nowhere good enough. Around it, the quarterback play was not great for Oklahoma in 2024. There's no secret about that. The help around the quarterback spot, specifically when you're playing SEC defenses, I think we all know wasn't good enough either. It's nice to see Oklahoma say, yeah, we're going to address the quarterback spot. We're going to get a massive upgrade in terms of John Mateer, but we're also going to build up the offensive line. We're going to build up the pass catcher room and make sure John Mateer has enough pieces around him for him to be really successful in the SEC. And again, I think the commitment of John Mateer all of a sudden makes this Oklahoma program a really attractive spot. Not only if you're a pass catcher, but just if you're just a player in the portal looking at Oklahoma and saying, all right, this is a team that can compete at the highest level of the SEC in 2025 because of that quarterback position. We'll see where Oklahoma goes from here. I think the main conversation is let's make sure we're building around John Mateer. We'll see how it works out. Appreciate you guys rocking with it. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. We'll talk to y'all later.